book, something of significance in the book is really a profile of Fani Willis here, who is a force of nature, widely respected, but at this particular moment is also under a cloud of doubt because of an apparently improper relationship. Part of the reason this cloud is so big and so dark at the moment is she has not said anything since the allegations have come forward. Why?
She hasn't, you're right. And in that void, you know, you're getting this feeding frenzy, all of these questions, and the cloud that you talk about. I think this is a kind of a classic tension between the PR-minded people in her office and the lawyers who are reluctant to get a lot of facts out there. They don't want anything to be contradicted, and they want to stick with the law. It will come out. It will come out this week.
But what I'll say... But the cloud is that she was involved with one of the prosecutors, neither one of them, Nathan Wade, that she hired, who's also featured in the book.
That's right.
Neither one of them have said anything about it. But should that matter, whether it's true or not true?
Will it have an impact?
Yeah, should that matter?
Let's start by stipulating that this was a serious lapse of judgment if it happened on her part. And I'm sure she is saying, what in the world was I thinking? But that said, it has no bearing on the underlying case itself. These 19 people were indicted for conspiracy crimes to overturn the election. And the fact that she was maybe having an affair with someone or an improper relationship with someone in her office has no bearing on the case, and nor should it, I think, in the end, disqualify her because there isn't really a conflict.
But I'm fascinated.
Let me ask you this: today the news came out that the prosecutor, who's I believe is the lead prosecutor in the Georgia case, he settled his divorce today ahead of testimony that he might have made. So he basically avoided testimony and shut down the thing. Did you guys have any inkling in your book? I know you guys have probably been in edit and waiting to print for a while. Did you have any inkling of this divorce story and any potential affair with Fani Willis?
We did not. Interestingly, since it all happened, I've spoken to people who are close to her and who work with her, and they were all completely shocked. So the people around Fani Willis had no idea that this was going on. We should say that she has not acknowledged it yet. She has not confirmed the allegations, but we're expecting that she's going to file a response to that original motion that dropped a few weeks ago. Later this week. The deadline is on Friday. We did write about Nathan Wade, the lead prosecutor who she was allegedly having this improper relationship with. So she ultimately settled on Wade, and some people have questioned whether he had the credentials to be the lead lawyer in a case like this. What's important to understand, and I think has not been really fully reported, is that Nathan Wade was never anticipated to be the main trial lawyer in the case or the sort of legal architect of the case. He was always going to be the kind of manager, the guy who was behind the scenes, the guy who ran the grand jury process. And by all accounts, he was very good at those things. In fact, I spoke to one of the grand jurors who watched Wade over hundreds of hours, help navigating the grand jury through dozens of witnesses, thousands of documents, some of the legal issues that they had to deal with, and said that he was really quite good. There is a suggestion that she hired someone who was not who didn't have the credentials for a job like this because they were lovers. And I think it's more complicated than that. Also, we don't know that if they were having a relationship, a romantic relationship, we don't know whether it started before or after she hired him.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine it wouldn't really overthrow the case or derail the case, other than just to throw mud on it and
but this is an important. It's an important point, Chris, because. Look, the theory of the Roman motion is that Fani Willis and her whole team, and therefore the whole office, should be disqualified from bringing this case because of a conflict of interest. Because the relationship with Nathan Wade and the fact that they went on vacations together and there were some financial entanglements suggests that she has some stake in the outcome of this case. Well, that rests on the idea that because she was paying Nathan Wade, and they used maybe some of that money to go on a few trips, that they were essentially there was some kind of a corrupt agreement between them. Hey, let's prosecute the former president of the United States. That way, we have this case that'll go on for a long time. We can make a lot of money and go on a lot of trips. Well, it's absurd. All prosecutors get paid for their jobs. They all would have an incentive. And the reality is that the conflict of interest rules in Georgia are quite clear. First of all, they have to be an actual conflict. Second of all, you have to have, it has to be something that would give you a real where you have some improper stake in the outcome of the case. So, for example, if Fani Willis had been dating the judge in the case, or a defense lawyer in the case, or a cop in the case who was a witness, that would be problematic. If, for example, and we know she didn't do this, but if, for example, she had hired Nathan Wade on a contingency fee basis, i.e., hey, I'll pay you X to do the case, but if you got a conviction, I'll pay you twice as much. Well, that would mean that he had a stake in the outcome, and that would suggest the improper bias or whatever, and that's not the case either. In the end, Judge Scott McAfee, who is the judge presiding over this case, is going to have to look at Georgia law and precedents and make a decision based on those things. It's not about the optics. Gee, this looks bad, and so I'm going to toss her from the case. Although, judges have a fair amount of discretion, and so we don't know exactly what he'll do. But most legal experts that I've spoken to think it's unlikely that he will disqualify her.
That'll be good. I would hate to see this whole thing unravel.
And well, that is the risk, because, and I'll explain why. The way it works is, if she is disqualified, nobody on her team can handle the case, and in fact, nobody in the office can, because she's the district attorney. So the conflict would taint the entire office. Well, that means they'd have to try to go. It would go to something called the prosecutor's council in Georgia, and they would have to figure out what to do. They would have to find another district attorney's office that could take on this case. Well, there are not a lot of district attorney's offices in Georgia that have the resources to take on a case like this. And imagine, the team would have to learn all of the ins and outs of the cases, to reinvestigate parts of the case. I mean, it would be a disaster, and I think there's a likely chance that it would never. It would never get to trial.
We know, as we talk about Fani Willis here, that the Trump legal team wants her off the case because of her alleged relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, that she appointed. Is her role in this case, in your assessment, in jeopardy here? Could she be pulled off, and how would it affect it?
Well, she's going to be filing a response later this week, and will be the first response she makes to the allegations. And, we have reason to believe it's going to be a pretty vigorous pushback on at least on some of what has been alleged. Look, there's no question that this was a lapse in judgment on her part to have a relationship with Nathan Wade, who was the chief prosecutor on the case. But that said, it is worth keeping this in perspective. None of that had any impact on the case whatsoever. It didn't deny anybody their constitutional rights. It was not a case of prosecutorial misconduct. It doesn't influence any of the evidence in the case. So we'll see after she responds, and the judge has a hearing February 15th. But
the legal threshold for disqualification is an actual conflict of interest. It's a very high bar. And at the end of the day, the judge is going to have to make the decision based on law, based on precedent, and there has to be that conflict. And I don't know that there is.
Well, and the question is, did a conflict disadvantage a defendant?
Exactly.
And
exactly. There's no evidence of that at all.
There's not only is there no evidence of that, but if you're arguing that the prosecutor got the job because of a personal relationship, well, it wasn't based on merit, so that would actually help the defendant.